expert presenter who I will introduce in a moment. But if you could please take a moment to enter your contact information into the chat box for those of our friends on Zoom. That way, following the event, we can share your contact information with all the other attendees so you can stay in touch with each other. Also, if you have questions throughout the event, please feel free to add them in the chat and we will get to our questions definitely by the end of the session. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Bola Adina. Bola is a strategist whose areas of expertise include go-to-market strategies, business process re-engineering, digital transformation and performance management analytics. Bola has extensive experience working with clients to identify essential functions, activities, and goals needed to guarantee the successful deliveries of their strategies, developing tactical objectives to address these goals, and developing performance measures and targets to gauge progress against those objectives. Bola has experience working in the federal, life sciences, financial services, and hospitality industries. Bola is a managing partner at MBA Growth Partners, a business advisory firm offering strategic growth and operational efficiencies support for organizations. Bola has over 17 years of experience in the consulting field with a primary focus on performance and change management. Bola has experience working in the federal life sciences, financial services, and hospitality industries and holds an MBA from the Darden School of Business and a bachelor's in computer science from the University of Pittsburgh. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Bola.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to move the microphone a little closer to
Turn the camera around.
Turn the camera around.
Hello. Let's see what the camera is looking like before I get started.
There we go. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
All right, perfect. Well, this is even better as well. So. All right, great. Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining this presentation. And just to quickly sort of gauge, I guess I'll probably speak for about till 9:45, generally speaking. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah,
and then turn it around for questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So, so thanks for joining. I'm excited to be here with you all and really to talk about a topic that is really close, near, and dear to my heart. Because a lot of times as business owners or even executives within our organization, you know, we have a vision for our business, we have the strategy, but sometimes we don't always match that with our short-term goals. We don't think about the barriers that could keep us from those goals. We don't think about the day-to-day operations of our businesses and how that ties into, you know, what you're doing today has impact on your goals and, of course, ultimately your strategic outcomes. And then, of course, the KPIs are the metrics. You know, what sort of metrics should you be measuring as an executive, as a leader, as a business owner within your organization to make sure everything is on track, as opposed to sort of reacting to when things fall off the track. So that's what we'll talk about today, and what a great time to have this discussion, especially given we're close to the end of the year, the calendar year, and hopefully a lot of you all are developing your strategic plan. So yeah, happy to get into this with you. So, you know, MBA Growth Partners, we do go-to-market strategy, strategic planning, operational efficiency, and exit planning. So really everything relating to the business life cycle. All right, so the intended takeaway for today's sessions is to really think about how you might develop and execute on your strategic plan. And we typically like to take a 5-part approach to it. So these parts have been greatly condensed for the sake of this conversation. However, when we work with our clients, you know, we're really dissecting all of this and hand-holding them throughout the process so that they really feel comfortable and have that dashboard view, that executive view into the day-to-day operations of their business. So, you know, we'll sort of quickly walk through how we might get there today. So part 1 is the case for strategic planning. For those who are maybe still not convinced, we'll talk about why it's important to do strategic planning. And then we'll talk about, you know, the goals that you might want to focus on, particularly as you look to address some of the obstacles that may be getting in the way of the goals that you're looking to advance. And then we talk about how to systematize your goals based on your day-to-day processes. And then from there, the KPIs or metrics to track, and then an executive dashboard for how to bring all of it together. All right. So generally speaking, when we work with our clients, I want to make sure I'm not looking at the thing and then folks are looking at mine.
Perfect.
All right.
It's good.
Good. All right. So, I mean, I think we all know as business owners, it's much easier to have a playbook when you are running your day-to-day business operations versus kind of just getting up and winging it. So a playbook is something that really helps you think about the roles, responsibilities, the players, the activities to be performed, really all of the intricacies of your business. And what's important is because when you have that playbook, then you know who has done what. And also you're able to track relevant metrics to make sure that you are advancing accordingly. So, what we like to tell folks is as much as we want to follow our gut, and there is a place for that gut to play a role, ultimately, your goals with your playbooks and your metrics to track really stand a better chance of getting you success than otherwise. All right. So the case for strategic planning, I'll quickly go through this. And also, if folks have questions, I'm just going to be, okay, so I know you guys are
We'll
putting
have
your
Olivia kind
information.
of monitor the chat.
Okay, gotcha.
And,
So
and she'll point it out if there's something that pops up.
Okay, gotcha. So if there are questions, you can, I think we're small enough that you could even unmute and chime in. But yeah, so the case for strategic planning. So a strategic plan really bridges the gap between where you are now, your day-to-day operations, and where you're looking to go either in the short term or the long term. And as we are in the phase of putting together our plans, I'm actually in that process as well. A lot of times we miss the opportunity to really just reassess the whole situation. So as you're putting a plan together, you always want to really just reassess the state of your business. What business am I in? What's the value, the business model? Who are my customers? Am I still servicing them the right way? Do I need to shift in any way? So really just taking a step back, not to continue to grind and push forward the same strategy, but to rethink, what your business model is. And once you have a good sense for all of that, you want to then align your strategy and resources to your short and long, mid and long term goals. And we say succession planning because a lot of times, people don't think about the end goal and how you shape your business, the type of business and how you want to exit really influences the activities that you're doing right now. So it's also important to really think about all of that comprehensively. And your resources are, your people, the processes, the technology. What are the various elements that you'll be bringing to bear to really execute on the strategy? And then from there, you want to create an action plan. So an action plan is now what starts to distill that grand strategy into who will do what, when, and how. So it really starts to shape up for you in terms of what things are looking like. And then, of course, allocate the appropriate resources, time, money, talent. A lot of times we'll have goals. They're really amorphous. We don't know who within our organization will be doing it, what timeline we need them to do. Some goals are really stepping stones for bigger goals, and we don't always connect the dots. So this is to really allocate the resources and the time to really make sure that makes sense. And then you start to develop the metrics to track your success. So that's the case for strategic planning. Hopefully this little thing is moving very fast. So hopefully that makes sense, and we're all sort of bought into that. And then of course, there's an exercise here at the end of every part of this to allow you to think, what are my goals, either for this quarter as we're getting ready to close out the year, or even for next year. Really start to think about that and think about what functional areas do they fall into. Now, this is always an area that, that there's an aha moment for a lot of folks because, they may say, we want to double our revenues, which one might think that falls squarely within sales, and that's great. However, there's so many other areas that falls into. If you're going to double your revenues, then how does that impact marketing, right? So you'll have some goals around marketing. How does that impact human capital? Do you need to train some folks? Do you need to hire new people? How does that impact your technology? Is the outreach we're doing right now, squarely based on business development, or do we need to pull different tools into the process? So really, as you're thinking about your goals, you really want to dissect it down to the nitty gritty of the different parts of your organizations that will be impacted by these goals. And then from there, you then start to carve it out and flesh it out. So, any questions or any thoughts from anyone before we go on to part two?
It looks like he was ready to.
I mean, planning is a piece of it, but planning is just not get out your crystal ball exactly, but there's a lot of variables, a lot of things that can impact your plans and your, I would like to double my revenue, but hey, I just lost my salesperson, et cetera. So it's contingency planning seems to me to be a major component.
Yeah. Mitch, it's almost as if you and I had a script for that, because part two, part two are the barriers to accomplishing your goals. So, you're absolutely right. A lot of us are sort of pie in the sky type of folks. We get so excited at the start of the year, especially there's so much momentum, so much excitement. And, you want to double, triple your revenues, go into 10 different markets without really thinking about the barriers. So, as you start to really do this visioning and breaking it down to the different departments, the second part is now starting to sort of ground yourself in reality, to really consider what are some of the barriers that could keep us from accomplishing this goal. And a lot of times, something else that I want to add is depending on the size of your organization, strategic planning and all of these activities should not be done in isolation. So ideally, you want to get your leadership team together or other members of your team to really get buy-in, right? There may be other barriers that you, depending on the size of your organization, may not be aware of. So you really want to make sure that all the critical elements are on the table as you're looking to flesh out this plan. So part two is to really think about the potential obstacles to your goals. And there are several. And some of the ones that we've listed out here are organizational complications. So to your point, Mitch, you want to double your revenues. All of a sudden, you've lost your salesperson. Well, it gets a little complicated. So now we can press the gas pedal to really go out and sell, sell, sell. We've got to, in the short term, have another goal, which is to hire a new sales director. And then it could also be that, everyone, we have all the right butts and seats, but, just the decision-making process is not very clear. We have some complications in terms of the various layers in our organization that makes it difficult for folks to actually make decisions. So it's important to really think about the nuances that are baked within your organization so you can remove them and make sure that you can really find flow within your organization. Changes to strategy could be another one. We get so excited about, the latest ideas, the latest insights, things that you want to incorporate into your business. And while that may be great, particularly if you're the business owner and you are more of an innovative type, however, it could really cause whiplash for some of your employees. And a lot of times people get that there's a little bit of fatigue when strategy is always changing. So also think about really sticking to a strategy or making sure that we're not sending signals that we're not really serious about this particular strategy. Decision-making process could be another one that's very difficult to manage. Unclear expectations. So let's say you just hired the new sales director, but they're thinking they have 6 months to ramp up, whereas you want them to really hit the ground running. It's just important to be clear about expectations and perceived priorities, so that, we have all of the elements on the table, in terms of how we will be addressing these. So thinking about those barriers are very important. And we have the link there that says 5 barriers to achieving your business goals to allow you to think even more in depth about these. But ultimately, what a lot of these barriers point to are lack of resources, not enough time, not enough people, not enough, um, energy, whatever it is, to do all the great things that we want to do. So, in assessing your organization, it's important to really think about, what are these barriers and how are they keeping us from our goals? And ultimately, how might we be able to address them? So once again, I guess I'll like to see if someone, maybe online, if any of you have undertaken the strategic planning process, and perhaps, as you were undergoing it, identified a barrier that you felt absolutely needed to be addressed as a part of the plan. And if, oh, okay, if not, that's fine. But, keep this in mind. I think it says,
It looks like, oh,
yeah.
excuse me. It looks like Mike has his hand raised. So if you want to unmute yourself, Mike, and
Oh, yes.
Sure. Good morning, Bola. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. Thank you.
So yeah, I have undertaken the strategic business planning for 2023 with Lee, who's also on this call. Some of the barriers that we've identified, one is compliance in my industry. There's a great deal of compliance. So when it comes to especially marketing, we are very limited as to what we can put out there because it cannot be perceived as advice. And then also what we're working through is like we have a growth plan, but we're going to need more people. And like pretty much all of us, finding the right people has been very difficult.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. And thanks for really speaking to the specifics of that, because, you'll quickly see that while you do have a strategic plan, a growth plan, and you're really addressing, marketing in those plans, or even hiring some folks, there are some tangential goals that you need to then be thinking about and perhaps, having as a prerequisite, right, for some of these other goals that you have in mind. You're trying to grow, you have this growth plan, all of a sudden you need to prioritize hiring the right people, right? So what does that look like? What does that activity look like? How do you either partner with the recruitment organization to do that, or maybe even you all taking a step back to analyze what does the right employee look like within our organization? Is there a pivot? Is there a change from, the folks that we brought in the past, and now given the environment and, the nature of how aggressive you want to grow, what those characteristics look like? So now that becomes all of a sudden a completely different project and set of goals with its own set of timelines that you need to identify. So thank you for that. And you'll notice that with each of your goals, as you continue to break it more and more apart. All right, so part 3 is freeing up resources through business systemization. Now, what does that mean? So a lot of times there are inefficiencies built into our businesses. They're not by design typically. Sometimes you start out as a one-man operation, or maybe you come in and things have always been done a certain way. And all of a sudden that just becomes how we've always done it. But if you're not consistently looking at ways to continuously improve on your processes, on your business operations, these resources, time, energy, money, all of that are stuck in your organization, and you're really having to, you're wasting a lot of your resources in that way. So as you think about planning for the new year, for the new quarter, and you're seeing the barriers in front of you. And what we've said is a lot of times these resources have some sort, these barriers have some sort of limited resource issue tied to them. So now it's important to pull back and then think about how might we optimize our business operations so that we can free up some of these resources that are buried within our organization. And a lot of times the easiest way to do this is by just having a consistent process. So really thinking about how might we put systems in place for all of our business operations, the right people doing the right things at the right time in the most efficient way, on budget, on time. But ultimately, what that looks like is making sure that, if we have a marketing department, do we have the way we do marketing fleshed out? Are we automating the processes? Are we tracking to make sure that it's done the right way? Do we have the right systems in place? If we have a sales process, have we squeezed out all of the efficiencies within that? How are we fulfilling, what our clients have paid for? What about our back offices? So when you're pulling back and doing your strategic plan and you're identifying the barriers, this is really a good opportunity to see how you might maximize your business operations, particularly given the new strategy that you're planning on taking forward. So, what we typically recommend here is to make a list of all the business processes that are related to your goals. If you recall, we mentioned what are your goals, what are the functional areas that are impacted. And as you have a list of all of those processes, what you want to do is start to question, well, why are we doing things this way? Are there innovations that can be had here? Are there new ways we can think about doing things? And really just identify ways to improve upon all of that. And then the next step is, a lot of times we'll see an opportunity for us to reassign new owners of certain processes, meaning somehow processes were just kind of just evolve. No one owns them. We don't know. We just do things however we do them. But part of streamlining is making sure that there's a clear owner who's responsible for optimizing improvement and can really train the rest of the team on the best way to do things. And you'll be surprised. And then, of course, putting technology on top of it. There's an app for almost everything these days, and they're much more accessible than they used to be. So it's really being willing and open to do things differently in the case that it could possibly save time and some money along the way. So that's why we really get a little bit more efficient in identifying folks who might be able to support us through that process. And then the next activity here typically is for each of your goals, think about your processes as well as the barriers that you've identified and think about ways to really resolve them. Right, by systematizing them, putting defined processes in place, documenting them, training on them, and making sure that everyone has a consistent way of doing things moving forward. So what you'll notice is there's a lot of background work that's to be done as we're thinking about managing your business by the number. But if you are not consistent in how you do business, and everyone just does things their own way, it's very difficult to really collect insight data in a consistent way to be able to then track the current state of your business as well as predict the future. So that's really why you want to do a lot of this cleanup work or activity upfront so that you can now get reliable data coming out of it. Any questions there? Okay, all right. So this is where we get to the metrics then. So as you've done the strategy, you have the goals, you've thought about the barriers, and we've thought about all of the inputs into how we work. Now you have a good sense that our business is in a pretty good state. We've thought about it. We know what we might want to improve. Maybe we've already started to improve upon those. And if not, we have a plan for how we might get there. So now we need to incorporate all of those planned improvements into our processes with our goals, with those breakdowns of some of the goals, and really pull that into a plan, an action plan. And that action plan is really what gives you the opportunity to really see the progress that you're making, as well as allows you to really track metrics along the way. So as you're thinking about the right metrics for each of those activities or actions, the questions you want to start asking yourself are, what are the types of KPIs, key performance indicators, I should be collecting? And these metrics should really, once again, tie back to your strategic plan. You can collect a lot of data. There's some folks who get so excited and, they want to track metrics on everything. But ultimately, if it's not advancing your strategic objectives, then maybe it's not as relevant or as pressing for you to focus on. So ultimately, you want to think about, what are you looking to achieve? What is the time frame for the achievement of this, and how can you measure the progress? So some of the categories, generally speaking, that we think are good and provide a broad enough categories are metrics around sales and your financials, of course, marketing, project management, and your human capital, so the people within your organization. And these metrics break out into 9 that we recommend. Of course, you can track fewer metrics, you can track more, and they could be some of these, they could be different. But overall, everyone wants to grow their business. So generally speaking, there are certain metrics around marketing and sales that most businesses want to track. But a lot of times we'll jump into sales revenues, right? But there's some metrics up before that, up the value chain, that you can track to really make sure that you can guarantee the revenue figure that you're tracking towards. Then, of course, the margins, met and overdue milestones. This is how efficient you're working towards your goals, right? So this is the projects that we have, the initiatives, how we're delivering against our client expectations. It's really important to really understand how well are we able to meet our objectives, in case that there may be opportunities for you to really rethink and improve upon your training with your people. Resource utilization is another one. And then in a day and age where we really need to make sure that we're keeping track and holding on to our employees, just really the employee happiness is another one that you might want to consider tracking. So to break down each of these, so when you think about qualified leads per month, I know there's some marketing folks around here, but this is an essential part of your marketing and sales strategy. It really helps you track really how well you're attracting the right customers, how well you're getting them interested in what you're doing, so that you can sit down and have conversations with them. And with each of these metrics, it really shows you how you might measure it. So MQLs, marketing qualified leads are the leads that are qualified by your marketing team. So we don't want just everyone asking us for a sit down. We want the folks that are well within our customer profile. And so hopefully you will have done the ideal customer persona profile, and that also helps you pull the leads into here. So if marketing accepts your MQL, then you know that we're really hitting the right group of folks. And then sales accepted leads are the ones that, they come in through marketing and sales says, yeah, this is exactly the folks that we want to be speaking with, because we can easily convert them, right? If sales and marketing are not on the same page, marketing could be bringing all sorts of folks and our leads are up. However, maybe they're not qualified. They're not the ones that sales folks want to speak with, or we're not speaking to the right individuals within these organizations. So it's really important to make sure that both sides are connected, so that you can be converting your qualified leads, much more on a much higher rate. So how you improve this is to focus on the audience that has the highest probability of being interested in your product. Lead to client conversion rate. So this is where we have the marketing qualified leads. We know the number of leads that we're getting. We know that they're right within the area of folks that we want to chat with. But now, how well are we able to convert them, right? So if you're measuring this, it gives you a sense that, the work that you're doing on the marketing front is great. The sales folks are doing their job. They're well trained. They know how to really help you convert the client. And then ultimately, you have clients coming into your business. So if you notice that, the monthly new leads, and how you get this is your monthly new leads divided by the monthly new customers. So how many people do you have coming in through your funnel versus how many new customers do you have at the end of it? And if this is going up or down, you'll be able to get a sense that something needs to be tweaked. There's an issue there. And to improve upon this, you need to really just isolate what's going on. Perhaps your sales team, we recently had a sales director leave, so now we need to train the sales team. So marketing could be bringing all the right people, but we're not able to convert because we don't really know how to convert them. And that is now something that helps you become more targeted in terms of a solution. But it could also be that maybe your service and product no longer has the right fit, right? So we have a sales team, they know what they should be doing, but the market positioning has shifted in a way that we need to tweak our product. So knowing what this looks like and how it's going up or down, how it's trending, really gives you a sense for, what you need to address within your organization. And then cost of customer acquisition. I know, for the marketing folks, a lot of people want new customers, but they're not sure whether or not they want to make the investment in marketing. Is it worth it? Will I get my return on investment? And the easiest way for you to track this is through your cost of customer acquisition. So you're making all this efforts around your marketing campaigns and you're spending all this money, but how well are you converting them to new customers? So the best way to do that is to divide all the costs spent on getting new customers on a monthly basis, and then, how many new customers did you acquire? And that CAC is $200. So if it's going up, that means it's getting more expensive to get new customers. If it's going down, it's getting cheaper. What you're doing is working. And ultimately, what this tells you is as you start to really assess what the numbers are doing and what types of clients we're not converting or how expensive certain clients are, it really guides you on where you want to focus your effort and your energy versus, just throwing everything on the wall. All right, sales revenue, I think we have a good sense for this, so we don't need to focus too much on that. Gross margin is the same. Ultimately here, it's your sales revenue minus, the cost of goods divided by the total sales. But it shows your company's productivity, how well you're able to really provide your services and your solutions to your clients. And you can improve by this either by improving your sales or your production processes, just making it much more efficient so you get to keep more of your margin. And then net profit margin is really how much your company is generating in profit compared to revenues. And the easiest way for you to improve this is to either sell more or to lower your sales and production costs. So once again, once you know what these metrics are, it gives you a sense for the levers that you can pull to see how you can be much more effective and profitable within your organization. And then I started to speak a little earlier about the met and overdue milestones. This is where you're tracking the initiatives, the projects. You have an action plan that is sitting up against your strategic plan. So now, how well are we working towards it? So let's say we wanted to hire, a new sales director in 2 months, and now it's 3-4 months, and we haven't even, started on that project. Then we'll know that, we're not really likely to make the ultimate goal that we're working towards. So the more we're able to really meet and surpass our expectations around the milestones that we've set for ourselves, the more efficient we're running as an organization. And it just helps you keep track of where there are leakages within your organization. Something else that allows you to really understand what's going on here is, let's say you used to really have a great percentage for hitting your milestones, and all of a sudden it's taking a downturn. You might be able to now start to assess, well, what's going on here? Do we all of a sudden have unreasonable expectations around certain projects? Are we not able to really scope it out well? Do we not have the right people on certain projects? So there are ways that you can really start to ask targeted questions around, missed milestones. Who's responsible for this? Do they need more training, et cetera? It could also be insufficient resources. So let's say, you have Jackie on 3 different projects, and all of a sudden her ability to really produce and close out certain projects have taken a downturn. Then it may be an opportunity to really hire new people into the organization. So insufficient resources could be another reason why you're missing your milestones. And this is a good metric to really alert you as to when it's time to bring in new resources into the organization. It could also be low productivity. So maybe you have all the people, you've set the right expectations for timeline of completing this project, but maybe people are just not motivated. They don't, they don't understand where we're going as an organization. So this is an opportunity to really assess what's going on here. Maybe we need to improve morale. Maybe we need to train more. Maybe we need to have different types of benefits for our people so that they can be more engaged. So it's really an opportunity to really dissect what's going on instead of having a one-size solution for every problem that you might encounter. So it's a much more targeted approach to this. And then resource utilization really just gives you a quick glance at your team's work and measures how the time your team members are spending, what time they're spending on the various projects that they have. So it's the recorded hours over the available hours. And it just helps you get a sense that, my team is busy, they're being productive and producing the right outcomes versus, we have all these people, they're sitting on the bench, things are not getting done, they're recording, fewer hours, their utilization is not high. So it really allows you to really ask really targeted and specific questions about what might be going on and how you might be able to address this within your organization. And then employee happiness is one that, I, get excited to talk about because I think it's one that's typically overlooked. But happy employees really make productive employees. So when we think about, low utilization, low productivity, lack of, excitement around sales conversion, a lot of this could track back to your employees, right? Are they happy? Are they committed? Test study shows that 12% more employees are 12% more effective when they're happy at work. So now more than ever is an opportunity to really think about how might we really make sure that we're addressing the needs of our people. What sort of benefits might they want, remote, on-site, a mix of the two? What type of other benefits like free coffee, PTO should we be considering for our people? And how you measure this, it's something as simple as just an email that says, or a survey that says, am I happy with my job, right? And if you're tracking it on a month-to-month basis and you see all of a sudden, we used to be at 95% and now we are at 70%, there's a problem, right? So it's an opportunity for us to, have an all hands meeting, have a conversation, ask what's going on, get feedback from our employees and see how we might get them engaged. Or re-engaged within the organization. So this is an easy one to track, but it's really powerful and very important to track. So this is just a slide that shows that, as discussed earlier, there's so many metrics, so many KPIs that you could be tracking. So we're certainly not trying to boil the ocean by tracking every single metric. You want to really be surgical about which ones make sense for your organization, which ones are aligning back to the goals that we've set for ourselves, the projects that we're prioritizing, and which ones are actively advancing us towards our strategy. So with that, I will stop and see if you guys have any thoughts on KPIs, and for those who've sort of done their strategic plan, what are your thoughts about some of those metrics that we've talked about? Or maybe another question is, are any of these new to you all, or are they pretty consistent with what you've tracked or what you typically track within your organization?
Good questions.
Right. Everyone's so quiet. We know Mike's not quiet. Come on, Mike, unmute.
No, I was ready.
Okay.
Wanted to give everyone else an opportunity to talk. Once again, something that Lee and I have been talking about for a while are KPIs. And my challenge before this year was that in order for me to measure KPIs, I had to pull data from like 6 different places. And that was the barrier to me doing it because of some antiquated systems or software, just things that were not collaborating. So at the beginning of this year, we decided until the technology improves, let's just use an Excel spreadsheet. And really defined sort of like an anchor date or a start date, and really sort of aligning, okay, here is when we first connected with someone. Here is when we had the first intro meeting, discovery meeting, et cetera, so on and so forth throughout the process. Going back and looking at it, it is now easier for me to say, okay, for bringing on a new client, I am able to say from the time that we first meet, the average time before we have a first meeting is so many days. And then from the time that we have a first meeting to the time that they officially engage is so many days. And then from here, this is when implementation typically happens. Here is the average revenue per client. And now we are able to sort of go back and look at this year's metrics and say, where should I be spending my time to be the most effective and efficient? It's been very helpful, and I would encourage everyone on this call to go through this exercise. It's so useful, but you got to have good data.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. That's a great point. I think people are typically, it seems daunting because there are so many systems, as you said, involved and so many inefficiencies, right? Which is why I spend a little bit of time talking about that as well. How you consistently gather data, where it goes, how it flows through different systems in your business may make it its own project and therefore become too overwhelming for you to think about it. But to your point, you can really just start with either an Excel spreadsheet or maybe even on Word, just track down, when did I meet this person, when was our first meeting, what's the difference between the two. And really all it takes is discipline and being diligent about it. But soon enough, it seems like busy work, but really the insight and how you're able to really leverage that insight is so powerful. I mean, it really provides so much insight and allows you to make the necessary changes in a way that are productive within your business. So
Yeah,
really,
and
really
I can
powerful.
say, Bola, like at first it was overwhelming. It was like, oh my gosh, like where do I start? Where, how do I track all of this? And then sort of once I got going, I'm like, wait a second, this is not as daunting as I thought it would be. But like you said, the importance is the consistency of entering this data ongoing. It's then not nearly as daunting because you're doing it. You're disciplined in, and I always use the phrase, not just working in your business, but working on your business. So, yeah, I can say I was very overwhelmed at first, but once I really got started, I realized this is not as hard as I thought it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that I would even consider utility for your business. We all need to get our website up and running, or there's certain things that that's a given for your business. So even if you're not able to do it because you don't have the time or the bandwidth or the energy, you may be able to outsource it, to either another organization that can help you pull it together, or even hire some sort of part-time person or whatever, something that if you really just consider this as part of the cost of doing business, but it sets you apart in so many ways and really gets you closer to, meeting those strategic goals, then it really is worth the effort at that point. So, okay, thank you. Other thoughts or comments from anyone?
Yes, I'm Stephanie with KG Truck and Auto. Thank you for the information that you share. It's very thorough. I've attended quite a few of these over the past 2 years, and I don't think I've ever heard the information relayed in such an organized manner, the way that you laid it out, which resonates with me personally. My brain operates in very itemized way. But there is a lot that you touched on. So we have implemented this same process, and specifically in the last 3.5 years to our business very intentfully. And our way of going about it has been different, but we also have to build spreadsheets, kind of like Mike's team. However, we're using Google spreadsheets, and I'll get into that in a second as to why. But what we've done is kind of collect the data one-on-one with each employee. And through the pandemic, what we found also is that a lot of our team members that moved into leadership roles as a result of the pandemic was because so much of what we were able to uncover was figuring out if, one, they were placed in the correct role, or also figuring out ways that we could stretch them that they didn't know, that we didn't know. And there were so many other skill sets that everybody brought to the table. And a perfect example of one was the branding and marketing. So that was something that I specifically handled. And through the pandemic, everybody was kind of all hands on deck. Everybody was taking on different skill sets. So we really invested in the organizational competency and really invested into continued training and certifications in just different areas that they may have had an interest, or through the one-on-ones, we found out, like, man, you really do this on your off time. Like, these are thoughts that you have, or these are creative ideas that you could bring. Let's try to implement that. Let's explore this skill set that you have and see if this is something that makes sense both for you and the company. And so I had a gentleman that was a service concierge that then also moved into leadership role as my project manager to help carry out different roles and responsibilities, because through the pandemic, we found he was so great with marketing as well. So that was something that I could help delegate, and that kind of creative control. And he took it and ran with it and did really, really, really well. So exploring the talent that you already have and investing in continued training and skill set was something that was huge to help us create a better strategy as to what we already had existing, but also in the continued growth that we continue to have, how to place the right people in the right positions, because sometimes it also goes back to the strategy that we've been implementing, is revisiting very frequently the processes that you do have in place, because with each growth or milestone that you have, it does require something a little bit different. It does require for it to be adjusted. And so going into every division of the company and spending some time with your leads and spending time to just observe for a week, like the day-to-day things that hold them up, making notations, having them get their involvement in and say, here are the roadblocks that I encounter. This is why. Is this a time management standpoint? Is this buying better equipment that could shave off an hour or two off of time? Is this, leaning into our vendors to create better relationships to say, hey, we are not getting this. This is how much time it's taking us to just even get on the phone or placing this order. Can we streamline this process by having something online? So great ideas also produce better questions as well. And so our team equally now, so we have one-on-ones every month, and then we have a leadership meeting also that takes place once a month. And then we have a shop meeting that takes place once a month. So everybody's continuously clear on the communication, the vision, where we're going, where we're headed, can also contribute ideas. So this also led to what Mike was saying. It was an overwhelming amount of information, right? That was coming in every different direction, things that we were asking for, but we got it in a way that was so overwhelming. And then it was like, well, what do we do with all this? I don't even know where to begin. So we started organizing these ideas on Google spreadsheets and then dividing up the work amongst different team members. And so we created different Google spreadsheets because that meant anything that they did or that I did to update it was always updated in real time. So as we're growing and succession planning, a big part of what we're really considering is what do we currently have in place? What platform are we using it on? And is it trainable and is it scalable so that as we're building kind of like this, oh crap book, you could say, so something were to happen to us, everybody kind of knows where to step in and how to carry out these ideas and communicate it in the same way, right? So these are things that we're really, really thinking about, but there was the best way that we got the information, to be honest with you, was getting back into boots on the ground mentality and just going in there with our team and experiencing their day, because having them communicate it with you, the reality is that it's almost like a horse with blinders on. They're only able to see kind of like the day-to-day and just see this vision, right? Whereas where we can work on the business and we're seeing things from a bird's eye view. So if we're combining the way we think as leaders with what they experience on a day-to-day, you're bridging the gap to be able to make decisions and put better process in place that gets their input, but also teaches them to think differently outside of the box, helps them consider things that they normally wouldn't. And you're also growing the organizational competency at an individual level to start getting them to think in a more strategic manner. So that was something that takes a lot of time. It absolutely does. But I would say the best way that we started leveraging change within our organization in the way that people think and approach problems, concerns, issues with solutions was just by jumping in head first in their day-to-day with them. And that has been something that is really contributed to a lot of dividends that we've seen within the company at the organizational level, but also, the ROI back into the company. So I love what you're covering. I feel like that's something that should be spoken more about. So thank you for the information.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, yeah, you absolutely covered all aspects of that, especially the sort of digging out the inefficiencies and really seeing how you might be able to maximize your operations and really gain those hidden resources, a new talent within your organization, maximizing some of their work outputs, et cetera. So yeah, so glad that that's working out. And I know you wanted to.
Oh yeah, I just had a question. So like right now, we're heading into the end of the year, and I'm trying to start looking at, our business goals, how we should start creating those. Do I start looking at, to start creating some of those goals? Obviously, I have goals for the business, we all have them. But do I start basing that on maybe like some of the data from our accounting software that I might use? How do we go about really creating those goals based upon some of the data we currently have? Like, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a delicate balance of the two. So you do want to cast a very an interesting future for yourself. So what are some of the wild goals that we're trying to accomplish, and then of course set that within the base of reality. Based on maybe some of the accounting data, how many people do we have in the organization, where are some of our relationships, what are some of the opportunities that we left on the table, and I think that really helps you really pull together a set of goals that makes sense for you.
Okay. Yeah, because usually what we do is at the end of the year, I write down, well, really started last year, but I've made like a list of, the goals we need to meet, like revenue goals. Okay, we want to have these amount of contracts, we want to have those. And then just trying to turn those goals into actionable things to do. That was kind of the challenging part.
Yeah.
Also, the other challenging part for me was figuring out, well, I kind of know what I'm bad at, right? And how do I fill those gaps?
Yeah.
Like for right now, I don't really have time. I do the project management for some of our projects, but right now I need to not do that no more. I need
Mhm.
to actually have a project manager,
Mhm.
but I also need the money to
Mhm.
hire
Mhm.
an actual dedicated, well, maybe more part-time basis, but a project
Mhm.
manager. How do I mean, it's kind of a lowly question, but how do I start crafting those type of goals for the
Mhm.
future? Is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at.
I think that's where a lot of the sessions that Stephanie pointed out earlier
Yeah.
could really, come together for you. So
Okay.
maybe pull the team together, and you may not be at a point where you're ready to hire someone to replace you in doing the project management piece,
Right.
but you also understand I don't really have the bandwidth to do this because I need to focus my energy
Yeah.
elsewhere. So maybe who amongst the team members could possibly step in, right?
Okay.
Or maybe at
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fractional fee. Someone does this part of it, someone does other part of it. Maybe we could outsource it, on a part-time basis, or maybe find a system or tool to really help us get 90% of it done. And then, so I just think there are different ways that you
Okay.
start to brainstorm, as long as what are the constraints that we're operating within, and where do we want to go, and then putting that on the table. People get really creative in
Yeah,
terms of solutions.
I
Yeah.
think I'll sit down and kind of talk with them. I think next, because we're finishing up a web design project now, and we have another one that should be finished about 3 weeks. So I think we'll take the last 2 weeks of December, just not do anything,
Yeah.
right? And then maybe just sit down with everybody and be like, hey, this is our goal, this is what we're trying to achieve, and say, what we can get from here.
How can you all help? Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I know we're right on time. So really, ultimately what this is what this leads to if you're doing it right. And I always say there's so much data, but it's always better to be able to visualize it. So as you're collecting data, you have it in your Excel spreadsheet or wherever you have it. Think about building an executive dashboard. It's not complicated, it's so easy. There's an app for that. There's so many ways that you might be able to get to it, but if you've done the work up front, it allows you to actually visualize how things are trending, right? So no longer are you tracking reports and seeing what's going on. And if you actually set certain um, standards for it, trigger points, when something is in the red. So if everything is looking green, you don't need to obsess about certain parts of the business. And perhaps here for outstanding invoices, this is red, right? So maybe this is where you need to focus your attention for the next few weeks so that we can really track that down, as opposed to, tracking all of these other areas that seem to be doing well down. So the visualization aspect of it really just makes it that much more powerful for you to get a quick glance at the state of your business, but even more importantly, where should you be focusing your energy to really address the next set of questions. Yeah, so I know we're short on time, but ultimately that is it. And feel free to reach out if there are any questions or want to learn more about what we do.
Hey, Bola, I want to give you a shout out, Lee Crumbaugh. You and I are in the same space, and you've done a very nice job of presenting what I would call the implementation part of strategic planning. We should do a one-on-one because we're so aligned on this stuff.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
absolutely. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining, and thanks to everyone for chiming in. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bola, and thank you to all of our attendees as well. Following this, we will send out a link so you can rewatch this seminar if you'd like. So that will be coming out along with all the contact information from the chat and Bola's information, again, so you can contact her directly with any questions. So we hope you can join us. We do have our holiday mixer coming up on December 7th, which benefits our scholarship foundation, and it's just a lot of fun and a great way to close out the year. So we hope you can join us then, but otherwise, thanks again for attending, and we hope to see you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Great job.
Thank you.